Dale Ross. Sorry, Jim is not with us right now. He may show up later. He's at a baseball game. So he went to, I guess, they're in Durham to the Bulls game. So we may see him a little bit later. Jeff may show up. You may have seen this face before on Talking Preps. Cameron joined us tonight, which is good. I won't have to sit here. Sometimes it's kind of bad, Cameron, sitting here talking by yourself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's like you're talking to the camera.
Exactly. So hopefully shortly some people will be on, and they do leave questions. So you do have a chat up on the right hand upper right, if you see that.
Yep.
So you can see what people tend to type. The people that tend to come online are Iredell County, Cleveland, Lincoln, maybe some Gaston County. There are some Charlotte people too that come in and out, but primarily I would say Cleveland County and specifically Shelby and Kings Mountain is where we tend to see people. And they usually roll in here a little bit later. Couple of things I wanted to talk about is I started last night talking about officiating, and I didn't really get to go into it. And I'm not going to get too detailed, but I would like to address a few things about what I've seen. And quite honestly, I'd like to get your input, Cam.
Yeah.
You know, through 4 games, I've seen various officiating. I wanted to put up on my topics about officiating people. One of the first things is that we need 7-man crews. When schools can, I would like to see if a school wants to pay for the extra 2 officials, for those 2 officials to appear. And it couldn't have been more evident to me than in that Catholic Providence game, a game where you have, you had over 20 kids playing that will be playing Division II or Division I football, playing in that game. You had 2 Division I quarterbacks. You got Division I wide receivers, Division I tight end. It's hard for 5 officials to cover. Even not at that level, the kids have gotten so fast, so athletic, and big and strong, because this applies to linemen too, that it's hard for them to see everything. There was one play which did not cost Providence Day, but from my vantage point and most people's vantage point, and I posted the video, Providence Day threw a pass. I forget who the receiver was now. It might have been Shipley. I don't remember, but not Shipley. I don't know why I'm thinking Shipley. Anyway, Ship. There we go. He did not catch the ball, and they ruled a fumble, and the ball got turned over to Catholic. Now, maybe the officials on the field, their vantage points, they couldn't see. They couldn't see clearly. I can understand that. But I'd like to see 7-man crews in games when schools are willing to pay for them. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, we see it in college and the NFL. I mean, enough referees that they have 7-8-man crew and those and levels, and they don't get everything. So, what makes you think even at the high school level, 5 officials can see everything? I mean, they can't.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the answer. They can't.
They can't. Exactly. So, there's Carrie. Carrie, if you want to come on, I can send you a link. I pick up so much that isn't called. See, Carrie, that's right. So, Carrie, by the way, Cam, she's I don't know if you've been on the Carolina Varsity Facebook page, but Carrie is a phenomenal photographer.
Okay.
And she's got that's one of her pictures behind me.
Okay.
when I set up the events thing for the thing tonight, I posted another one of her pictures. I used to shoot myself. I have a Canon 7D, and now I have a Sony. I used to shoot. That's what really got me more integrated into Carolina Varsity. That was one of the reasons I started Carolina Varsity. Was because I was, down shooting pictures. I did it for the kids, just like what Carrie does. What happened with me is I started going to other games. When my sons were playing, obviously I was shooting their games, but then if there were rain games or out travel, or, if there happened to be other games that I could go catch, even while my sons were playing, I'd go catch them. So
Looks
she's
like we got a comment. Matt Lineberger says there's a shortage of officials, so I doubt you'll get more at the games. Well, that's true, but that's shout out Coach Grice, because he brought this point up last night. There's more people ever since COVID's kind of winding down, if you will. There's actually more officials signing up. So, yes and no, there are a shortage still, but I think there's more signing up to be officials and getting trained to be officials.
But the number of officials compared to what we had 5 years ago is tremendously less.
Absolutely.
So what has happened, I was friends with a number of officials. I like officials. I really do. I think they're great. I think they're great people, and they're providing a great point in our game that we need. So I talk with them, and I used to, when I was photographing, and Carrie, you might think about this, I'd take a lot of pictures of officials. I would go out to the coin toss, and one of my, I don't want to say trademarks, but one of the things that I would do is I would always get a shot of the coin flip. One of my goals was to get the coin flipping, and you'd be able to see that. But I used to talk to officials a lot, and I still do. Every game I have conversations with officials, and if I can at halftime, I talk with them. I talk to them before games, and I'm saying this because there were officials 5 years ago that by age would still be a viable official today, but they're not officiating anymore. I don't see them anymore. And then there's others that are officiating at college level that still were giving time to Friday nights who won't do that anymore. So Josh Fath is one that I can say he really got me integrated into officials and getting to know officials. On Carolina Varsity, when I had the forums up, I had a ask the official forum, and people could ask officials about calls. And sometimes I would post videos or pictures and get people to give their opinion, and then have the official give. And I there were a couple of officials that actually would answer some of the questions. So he's right in that it's going to be hard to get officials. And, that leads to one of the other points that I was making, and I started making last night, is why we don't have officials, or why we have fewer officials. And it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons, and a big reason, is the abuse that officials take at both Friday night games and Pop Warner games. Because it's the same guys that are officiating those games too. They like to officiate on Saturdays if they're not, college level officiating, because they can officiate a bunch of games and make more money. But the abuse that fans are given, and I was really serious, and that makes me hot. That's one of the things that makes me hot, is abuse. A student section, yelling at officials, you need glasses or something like that. That's okay. That's acceptable. That's part of the game. And officials don't mind that. That's not bothering them. But the things that student sections chant, that doesn't bother them. It's the adults and the words adults use and threats. The other thing that I'm seeing, Cam, this really worries me is the inconsistency of officiating. And the inconsistency from one game to the next, or within a game, an inconsistency within the officiating crew itself. And a lot of that has to do with experience. The newer officials, we have too many new officials. That's one of the things I've noticed is
A lot of them don't know the rules.
they don't either don't know the rules, or so the best thing I can say, and you were at the game, and we won't say the game, but there was a play where the sticks were set on the down to gain, the yard to gain for first down. The stick was, I think it was on the 25, and we'll say 25 just for reference. So the line across the field for the 25, the sticks were set up on the side of the 25 closest to the goal line. So on fourth down on the tackle, they placed the ball on the other side of that white line. Now I know that line is not a measuring line, but it is a turf field. So you know that should at least be measured.
Yeah.
And they gave it a first down. Now what upset me about that part's okay. What upsets me is what I just made the comment to the wing judge after everything had moved, because I'd been communicating with him because of what I was doing with the chain crew that night. And I told him, I said, you do realize that the chains were on the other side of the line. And the response was, it doesn't matter. All they had to do was get to the line. And yeah, so
no.
I don't know what he meant by that, but it was clear. It was, I don't want to say clearly, but it was measurable. It looked like it was that far short of a first down because the sticks were marked like within an inch past that line, and they set the ball down nose of the ball like within an inch of the line. So it was a very, very close. That line's not that, I don't know how wide it is, 4 inches, 6, so it's measurable.
Yeah, and a lot of it could be lazy chain crews.
It could be. Well, the other thing about chain crews, that chain crews are part of the officiating. So in the thing that got me, when I went on earlier on talking preps earlier this year about the working the chain crew and having the issue, what I'm aware of, because I used to run chain crew and I was a box man. I graduated to box man. Started out, carrying the sticks, and actually started out doing the clip, which is an important function. There's a lot. Every function's important. That clip may not be important until they have to. The clip's never important until they have to go out on the field and measure. But slack chains can mislead both just signaling a first down. Even though if you pulled the chain out, you might have had 3 or 4 inches. The official's right because it looks like it's a first down because of the way the chains are set. It can also mislead the team with the ball into thinking all I have to do is get to that mark. So, but inconsistency in games can be right high. Now, I got triggered this past Friday night because the officiating actually led to fighting on the field. Now, Garrett's a guy, if you see here, Garrett is one of our guys out east. And I guess he's not able to come on right now. Yeah, Garrett, they are getting more abuse. So, I don't know. I don't really know how we address this other than the NCHSAA dig into some of that money they've got and, pay subsidize some of the officiating to give the officials a little more money.
Yeah.
And incentivize them, to want to come back in and be officials.
Well, I think there should be sterner and I guess more strict consequences for, unruly fans. I mean, if you're at a high school football game, you're there for the enjoyment of the game. You're not there to, be hurling insults and hurling derogatory language at officials that are out there serving a purpose. So, yeah, they might not get every call correct, and you might see something that they miss, but at the end of the day, you're not out there doing that job. So
that's right. And hey, why don't you get out there and do that job?
Exactly.
that's a highly good point. As we've seen some incidences occur with fans in football games, not just with officials, but violence at games. I don't know how you police. I'm 100% in agreement with you. There should be some consequences to fans that do that, but I don't know how you police it. Because that's probably what it's going to take as a resource officer to help assist removing a fan.
Yeah,
Warning
resource
a fan.
officers, administration, but then that would be taken away from the school's administration's evenings. And I mean, as good as I do, half, if not more than half of, administration don't go to games. So
Right. It's not like it was when I played, or even a couple of decades ago. Administration was a little bit better. Now, my problem is I go, a large majority of my games are Mecklenburg County kind of bound games. I do go outside of the county. Usually I try to get 2 or 3 games outside the county a year. But I've seen a big drop in Mecklenburg County in interest of administration. So another point I was going to make about officiating. So with the fighting, violence, I want to make sure I got everything. I know there was one more, but I'm forgetting it. I don't want to belabor this point. But coaches. Coaches are part of the problem with abuse. I understand coaches. They put it, and they're correct that this is their livelihood, and those calls are impacting their livelihood. But at the same time, be respectful in how you disagree. You don't have to be abusive. So I'm not saying be, sweet and kind. I'm saying be assertive, yes. Question, yes. But do you have to be abusive to official directly? No, just report him. There's officials are graded.
yeah.
There's at games, there's somebody there grading an official.
Well, and I kind of want to flip this and I don't want to like completely flip it, but I would say that's almost on the officials themselves because they are in control of the game. They can choose how much of that they want to let go on. So, I mean, if they think it's gone to a point where the coach is being unruly, unsportsmanlike, and then the second one, he's out of there. So that can be put on the officials, in my opinion.
No, you're right. It can. there can be some issues there, of course, too. Officials try to be, I think, especially the older officials, they try to be, most of them, but I've seen some of them be vindictive. I won't get into that because those officials aren't around anymore. But the older officials would kind of let stuff roll off their back and accept that the coach is going to blow off steam and let them blow off steam. You got to be, you're right, you got to address it, but then you also have to be cautious about how often you address it, how you address it, because you don't want to become, you don't want to be throwing coaches out, tossing coaches out of games. And so I don't know how it
But in
gets addressed.
retrospect, wouldn't that I guess make it known that that's an issue, and hey, this will happen to you if you continue to be out of line. I mean, I think that would speed up that process, and coaches would get the idea.
Knowing coaches and coaches' egos, and I love coaches. I love the commitment that they give to young people. But coaches would start. It would become they're signaling us out, they're signaling me out, or they're So I think what you say is correct. I'm not sure how, and maybe a good official, maybe I can get a good official or a good former official to come on and talk about that. I'll talk to a couple of respected officials. That's a good point. I don't know how you address it, but if you know there's consequences to your actions, maybe Q Tucker could address this, maybe by being stronger. But what I was at the Ardrey-Kell Weddington game, the officials came over and sat down on the bench by me. So, I had a nice conversation with all of them, and I thought they were calling a very good game, and I let them know that. And so as we got to talking about the games being called, one of them looked up, and sitting right in front of me is a 50 to 60 inch, monitor Ardrey-Kell had there on the sidelines. And the one official had not seen that before. He's like, "Are they?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "They got the iPads over here too," because they had left their iPads. And then one of the other officials said, "Yeah, he told me the game. I won't say which game it was." He said the back, or the player, I don't remember if it was the back or wide receiver, he went in over the pylon. And he said, from my angle, he didn't get into the end zone. He was outside the pylon. So I ruled him, I didn't rule a touchdown. However, the school with the huddle sideline, they had different angles of things. And their angle, it was clearly a touchdown. And the coach had the iPad in his hand, and he's yelling at the official, "You need to look at this. You need to look at this." And he said, he told him, said, "Coach, if you throw a red flag, I'll look at it." So anyway, that's a long time on officials. Spectator.
I mean, that's kind of like the point we made last night about replay. I mean, if you want to talk about that a little bit, I think we had a pretty short discussion on it, but I like the idea, I guess the concept of replay in high school, but it's like I was telling Langston, unless you can implement it at every high school across the state, I mean, I think it's unfair to just implement it at certain games.
The only place you could implement it at certain games would be in the playoffs. Because when you get into the playoffs, that's when you get the 7-man crews. That's when you get to televised games, although we're starting to televise things now. But in the past, like the championship games were kind of a very special situation of, television and everything. So they could, and the fact that they're being played at college stadiums and you've got the camera situation. See, that's the problem with instant replay, or not instant replay, but having, review, is having enough cameras too, to be able to do that.
It takes a lot of cameras to get all angles.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think eventually, if football sticks around, we will see instant replay, but it's not, especially in the regular season, it's not fair to have instant replay at one location and not another. And if it's done in the playoffs, it would need to be done at every playoff game, not just a few playoff games. So wherever it happens to be, whatever level, be it regional, then it would need to be at all regional games, not just one regional game.
Well, I think it should be at every, like, if you're going to have it at any level of the playoffs, it should be at the start of the playoffs all the way through. And the reason I say that is, like, I'll emphasize what I said last night. Yes, a lot of the early round games aren't necessarily close, but in the few that are, some of the closer matchups, one or two calls may alter the outcome of a game, and you want that replay to, say, be in the round of 32, so.
I understand. But even the replay may not have gone your way because not having enough cameras. So, and that's the other thing. I think if they do instant replay, whatever they decide, they will do it. Whatever, if they throw a key and say, okay, we're going to do it, and it's going to be for these sets, whatever it may be, it also should have the same number of cameras at every location as well. And
Garrett says, I remember a playoff game where an official decision decided and altered the game's outcome. Put in the chat which game that was, if you can remember the exact game. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah. Well, let me see here. David Simmons, my team is getting better. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we do have people from up in the Lincoln and Catawba counties as well. There's Jim. Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. I'm not even looking at that part.
Hey, what's up, guys?
You have a good game?
Yeah, I had a really good game, actually. I saw about 4 innings and decided it was about time to go home. This kind of explains to you a little bit about being old. It was me and my wife and my daughter, and my daughter is going to be 22 in December. And I went to the office, I think 2 times this year, 1 time in 2021, 2 times in 2020, maybe 8 or 9 times in 2019. Don't know these people very well, and there was about 100 people there. I know exactly one person. So it kind of shows to me, like, A, I'm really old. B, the people that were there were like 5 or 6 years difference between my daughter. And here I am, 51 years old. I look around, there's maybe of 100 people, I was probably the 4th oldest person there at 51. So
Jim, I'm going to introduce you, and I'm going to maybe give Cam a little bit of history too, real quickly.
Hey, Cam.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good, man.
Cam is a young guy, just graduated UNCC. He's with us on Talking Preps. And
kind of a Durham Bulls thing here, a little bit of my Carolina hat on. There we go. All right, go ahead, guys.
He's out of Cabarrus County and very knowledgeable with high school football.
Out of Cabarrus County?
Out of Cabarrus County.
All right, which high school did you go to?
Graduated from Northwest Cabarrus.
Northwest, okay. So that's like going towards Kannapolis, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Okay, I live in Hillsborough, but I grew up in Stanley County. I went to North Stanley High School.
So if there's not a person, I bet, in North Carolina that knows the history of North Carolina football, and he's got the database to back it up too, more than Jim. So just real quickly, Carolina Varsity was founded. even before Carolina Varsity, before North Carolina high school football. Charlotte Observer used to have a forum back in the 90s that a lot of people were on. And people that you know that was on it, besides Langston, would be me and Chris. And then a site was created when Charlotte Observer shut that down or changed it. They changed the format of the forum. And a site was created called North Carolina High School Football. And that was ran by a kid who was at UNCC, and he's now, is it
Inside Carolina or somewhere?
Don Callahan, huh?
Yeah. Was it Inside Carolina? Did he go there at one time? Or
he's I think he still writes for Inside Carolina.
Okay, gotcha.
And I took that site over, running it for him towards it was his senior year. And then I started Carolina Varsity in 2004. And Chris actually came on with me. And Chris started Carolina Preps a little bit later. And Jim was with Carolina Preps for a long time. And as typically happens in any social situations, people get disagreements and things, and and Jim has been here. I don't know, Jim.
This is my 7th year.
7 years, and
yeah, I've been here longer at Carolina Varsity than I ever was at Carolina Preps.
Jim and I think a lot alike. It's surprising sometimes how much we think alike. So it just gives you a little history. A lot of people know each other and have integrated with each other. Jim, there was a post out today about because Chris is pretty much backed out. He isn't completely backed out, but he's really slowed down. And one of your friends, more your friend than mine. I don't not call him a friend. He tweeted out today about how, with Chris stepping out, other people are not stepping up. And he said Carolina Varsity, NC Preps, and HS, high school overtime. And I responded back that that's because, we have jobs, and it's hard for us to, I can't drive up and decide to be in Asheville tomorrow to see coaches, and then drive over to Wilmington Friday and then Saturday and Sunday. I can't do that. I wish I could. It's a hard thing for anybody today to step up and maintain a living. But anyway, we try, and I try to find people. So I'm hopeful. I've got a young girl that's at Ardrey Kell. She's a senior, unfortunately. She'll just start doing her first player interviews this Friday.
Oh, Helen. Yeah, Helen's awesome. I like Helen.
Yeah.
I was impressed with her.
Yeah, Helen is she's ideal. She's got the voice. She's got the confidence. She's got the demeanor. She's just, she is just solid. She says she hasn't done it before. And what she does, I met her because she's the signal caller for Ardrey Kell. She signals in plays. So I got to talking with her, and this is what she wants to do in life. She'd like to work for an ESPN. And one of the goals I've had is to try to find young people that can work and do these things. And I've got platforms that I can just let them do it on, and, go to town and spread coverage that way through young people. So that's my mode of stepping up. I wanted to do it. I need to have more people. I can't be the guy that does it. Jim can't be the guy that does it. We talk to coaches a lot of places, but we're not able to simply go to all the different high schools all throughout the day because we have to work. So
The thing about a lot of times when people talk about they need to talk up high school football in North Carolina and stuff like that, I'm going to say probably 85-90% of people want to hear drama. They want to hear about some coaching having issues with their players, or
yep,
maybe a spat between two coaches, or it's like they want to be in Fantasy Island and think that we're like Gerardo Rivera, trying to do some
pay
type of
attention to this, Cam.
sensationalistic
Yeah, exactly.
journalism.
You know, when you talk,
That's not what it is about. It's about supporting the fans, supporting the coaches, the
yeah,
players. So I mean, coaches talk to me all the time, and the thing about it is, whenever they tell me something, I keep it in confidence.
right.
Unless they want me to push the envelope, I usually keep quiet about it.
Yeah, you always get a coach, and they're like either going to ask you about a player situation at another school. Was he recruited, or he was recruited? You'll have coaches at one school tell you with certainty that another player has been recruited at another school, and they want to talk about. A lot of times they want to talk about that. Now, I talk to a lot of coaches, and a number of those coaches know we just don't talk about that kind of stuff because it's just not. They don't want to talk about it, and I don't want to talk about it, and they know that.
Well, when I was growing up, and this is a big thing with me, I grew up in the Rocky River Conference. I was graduated North Stanley in '89. We played North Stanley, South Stanley, West Stanley Admiral, Mount Pleasant, Piedmont, Parkwood, and Monroe, and also Charlotte Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale, you remember this back in '86? A lot of schools were ganging up against Charlotte Catholic, and they were saying all this stuff about recruiting and stuff like that. I remember looking at it, Charlotte Catholic, when I was like ninth or 10th grade, and I was like, if they're recruiting, they really need to fire their recruiter, because those guys weren't any bigger than us. They were just better coached. Had better fundamentals. They grew up together. They knew each other. They trusted each other. And I mean, whenever I hear stuff about Charlotte Catholic recruits this and that, I mean, I understand jealousy. I mean, I graduated from Carolina football. You're jealous of other programs. I'm jealous of NC State. I mean, they're really good. I'm jealous of Clemson. But I mean, it's just the smirching of the Charlotte Catholic group, and I'm Protestant. I have no allegiance to Catholicism. I have friends who are Catholic, but objectively, if you see the teams play, they don't recruit. If they recruit, it's just they're losing. They've lost. Horrible recruiting. I mean, me and Dale, we'd be better recruiters than if they actually have one.
Well, they don't recruit if you happen to go to any of their Pop Warner games, that they play. Those kids actually start playing together at that level. And then, of course, they play middle school together and they play high school together. The situation that made them, and they weren't good back then when the year that the kind of the time frame that you're talking about, they were kind of like independents. They'd be good, they'd not be good. They'd be good, they'd not be good. But they were more not good than they were good.
They're actually dropped off right after I graduated. 90, 91 were some lean years. Actually, North Stanley beat them in 1990. And North Stanley beats you in football back in prior to 2013. You're pretty bad.
They got good when Holy Trinity came into the system, and that's because Holy Trinity runs the same program. They run the same offense and defense. They run a T formation. That's the base offense that Catholic runs, is the T, and everything comes off of a T. And so when a kid goes into high school as a freshman, he already knows the system. He's not learning the system. He's not learning the different. When you go to the Charlotte schools, they get these kids coming from different programs with different coaches that have kind of ingrained different things into them, different cultures, and coaches have to fight that to get the players in line to play. And so there's a lot of other things they have to do, and Catholic doesn't have that. If you gave Chambers or any school in Charlotte, but primarily the good programs, if their middle schools fed directly into the high schools and didn't go, elsewhere, and they knew that, and they could work with those middle school kids and implement the offense that they're running in high school, so that a ninth grader comes in and he already knows the offense. So it's truly plug and play. That's their advantage.
Oh yeah,
It's
big time. I mean,
it,
it's if you the longer you are around people, the more you get in trust. The more that you trust people, the more you understand that they will remember their plays. They will. If there's a block to be made, the block is going to be made. You don't have to worry about getting blindsided. Uh, there's so many little things about it. Also, something about Charlotte Catholic that, and they may not have had it back in the late '80s, early '90s,
mhm.
was uh, was having a good administration. They've had some really good administrators over the years. Uh, you go to like a place like North Stanley, the administration was horrible with football when I was there. Our principal was a joke, and I'll tell him to his face if I ever saw him. Of course, he probably wouldn't understand what the hell I'm saying anyway.
If you want to go
But
around in Charlotte and look at the bad, I hate to use that word bad, but if you want to go around in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and look at the programs that are not winning, and you want to find out why they're not winning, you know what you're going to find? Bad administration.
look at Garinger, look at East Mac.
Yeah. They
I
don't
mean,
care
look at
about athletics.
yeah. I mean, look at North Mech. Even North Mech's kind of dropped down. I mean, North Mech's one of these programs is historically about 500, and they'll have like during the Will Campagna years they were pretty darn good.
They were
But
very good.
overall, they were kind of like this right here, you know.
Right.
West Charlotte's another perfect example. I mean, they've had some really highs and they've had some really big
Yep.
lows too.
Both of those schools are good in basketball, though. Very good in basketball.
Exactly. You know, I like that too. That's a very good point on that. Having basketball, it only takes. I mean, if you have 7 or 8 really good players on a varsity team, you'll do pretty well. With football, you need at least 20. I mean, at a minimum.
No, 32.
30. You think 32? Okay, I was thinking more. Yeah. I grew up in 2A. If you had 20 players, they're really good. You'll go to the playoffs.
So I had this conversation with Chad Greer about how good they are, and as I talked to him about what does it take for a team to be good and to sustain good. He really thinks obviously you need to have about a 40 to 50 man roster, but you need to have around 30 to 32 go-to guys that you've got on your program that you know that you can count on. If you're competing in a 4A level, a 3 and a 4A level, you got to remember down at the level you're in, Jim, you know all this stuff. You can slough off that you're a North Stanley guy, but the big thing is down at that level, you get to the point where your quarterback's playing free safety,
Right.
Just a few things quickly, because we got a lot of people or a number of comments that have been made, and I just thought we might address a couple of them. The first one I see as I go up is Monroe is my team to win state.
Oh, I agree with that.
Monroe is your number one.
They're my number one.
I'll bring that. Let me just bring that one up just to show.
I have a question about that. I pulled it up, and they play in one of those 2A/3A conferences. So where would they have to play in the playoffs? Would they have to play up, or could they play in the 2A bracket?
They're playing 2A. They're 2A. Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at Jim's insanely mad, we had someone decided that they got so mad last week that they were going to stop following us. So, and I agree with Jim's picks here. I put the Max Prep's power rankings up just so people can see relative how the power rankings work out with the picks, and you're going to see a number of the schools in both places. Maybe one of the biggest differences is that we do see Shelby because of their power ranking. And Jim and I both said Shelby will be back in the top 10. We know that. Yeah. You just got to be right.
I don't want to see Shelby in November.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Ball team.
Shelby's going to get better as the season progresses. I mean, they have an excellent staff. I mean, those players.
You look at their first 3 games. I mean, they had to play a brute of a schedule.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got Kings Mountain, AC Reynolds.
Yep, Kings Mountain.
That's exactly why Shelby is ranked 6th with a 2-3 record, above a 5-0 Forest Hills, for example.
Oh yeah. Well, just look at the strength of schedule. I mean, -31. Holy cow.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I like Forest Hills, but you know, they've got to get a solid win. I had this conversation with Alan, Jim, about, you know, he felt like beating
Charlotte Latin.
No, well, Christ School and Charlotte Latin. You know, Charlotte Latin just barely beating them, which I think Providence State plays Christ School this Friday night, which will tell us a lot. We'll talk about Providence State a little bit later, but Monroe is, Jim. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. I look at Monroe as like this. Let's say a 2022 Ford Mustang, and you know Mustangs are reliable. They're very solid. They'll get you from point A to point B. You can bet a lot of mileage on them. That's your Monroe team, and they can go fast. They're strong. With someone like Forest Hills, I look at them as a car that's just been created, and it looks really pretty, but you don't know what's inside the engine at this point. You don't understand what's inside the hood, I should say. You don't know how far that engine is going to take you. Is it going to take you? Is it going to go 100,000 miles? Is it going to go 200,000 miles? That's why I don't have Forest Hills ranked at this point. I don't know enough about them because they just haven't. I mean, they're 5-0, but have their most impressive wins probably Charlotte Latin. And I don't know how good Charlotte Latin is.
Exactly. That's the whole key thing is where is Charlotte Latin? Charlotte Latin historically has had some good teams, but we just don't. I don't know. We'll know more as the Charlotte privates start playing each other. We'll maybe get a better gauge of Charlotte Latin. But I'm with you. I think that for me, Forest Hills is right there on the bubble of getting into the top 10.
I agree. I
want to see a win. There's no surprises in your listings. I do like, or maybe you might say something about Maiden.
Maiden's I forgot if they're 4-0. I think they're 4-0 at this point. They look good on paper. I know that they have the athletes. I know that they will. They're a team that can go far into the playoffs. Are they as good as someone like Burns? I don't think so. Are they somebody that could possibly beat Burns? Well, yeah, if they kept Burns on a bad night. In the team that I would
Jeff would get online instead of just typing in the chat area. Jeff, I'd have you say something about Burns and Chase, and maybe get your opinion there. But anyway,
I'll say something about Burns. I don't think their one loss obviously was to Kings Mountain, and I don't think they'll see a defense in 2A they played really well against Shelby for 3.5 quarters till Shelby tried to mount a comeback, but I think Kings Mountain's probably one of the best defenses in the state.
I agree with you.
I think this Burns and Shelby, they played last week of the season. I think that's the case, and I think both of them, unless there's a lot of injuries or if there was some type of plane crash or something, they should win the rest of their games until the rest of the season. I mean, that conference is a 2-team conference. You got You got Shelby, you got Burns.
I
It's going to
think
be a fun
You look at this
October
past
20th
week,
game.
both of them had like 70 and 63 points and just blowout wins.
Yeah.
so. Either Allen or Carey just typed in the maiden record of 3-1. I'm not sure which one of the two that is. If that's
Oh,
Allen.
Maidens, that's right. They lost to they lost to Watauga. I can't remember. I think they may have lost to Watauga or somebody. I just can't remember. But
So, David, I agree with you on Monroe. I don't know if they're my pick yet because I really, 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 really want to see how Shelby progresses because that's going to be a good cold weather team as we get colder and colder.
That would still be my pick if I had to pick right now, even at 2-3. I mean, Shelby, they get better and better as the season progresses every
They
year.
do, but Monroe is a good squad, so that'll be a good game. That I hope that the unfortunate thing is because of Shelby's record, Monroe and Shelby may face each other before the regional.
Yeah,
I agree.
That would be kind of a sad thing.
Regionals,
just look at the strength of schedule. I mean, Shelby's is the highest at 6.7 out of any of these teams. So
exactly, no question. Again, that's why 2 and 3 they're sitting at 6th and 2A. They've lost to good teams. They've played big. They played big. When you look at everybody else, everybody else's strength of schedule is shoddy. Chase is -27. Excuse me. And Forest Hills, of course, you called out as -31. So now,
Reedsville is a team that I have a lot of respect for. They beat a really good Eastern Alamance team, actually an Eastern Alamance team that is a top 10 3A program. And their one loss, I think, might have been to Page. And I mean, Page can, they've been to the state championship game several times. It's a good program, but to me, the top 2 or top 3 teams in 2A, Monroe, Reedsville, Wallace, Rose Hill, those are the teams that I really think at this point are the best. Shelby's going to come up there. Burns is going to be up there probably. But Hereford County's a team I think is a sleeper.
Okay, let Cameron. I just saw your chat message, Cameron, about addressing David Simmons' point. Go ahead.
well, I mean, we kind of already hit on it about the Monroe thing. One thing I will say about the Burns and Shelby matchup at the end of the year, Shelby did lose to Crest, and Burns beat Crest rather handedly, 35-12. So, I mean, yeah, it'll be at the end of the year when both teams are playing their best football, but Burns might have something for Shelby.
Right. Later, I'm going to mention talk something about power rankings because I want to address that again with the Carolina Varsity football report. I want to bring that back. I won't belabor this, but we'll look quickly at the Jim's 1A, which I very much agree with. Again, we chat too much, Jim, that we agree too much on things. And your picks line up very close to the power rankings. Of course, power rankings have Tarboro. I don't understand why. They have Tarboro and Robinsonville down so low. But I don't think there's any surprises. I think the state is Tarboro's to win.
Yeah, I agree with you. From the West, though, I think you got about 4 or 5 really good teams. Actually, 6 really good teams from Robbinsville all the way down to Eastern Randolph. I would not be surprised if any one of those teams win the West, 1A West. I would not be surprised.
Right. My pick is right now Robinsonville, but that's probably more about tradition than anything. We want to see a few more, games come in, and North Rowan might be it's kind of hard to call them a sleeper, but this might be a good season for them.
North Rowan's a physical team.
Yeah.
and they have athletes. They're kind of like a 1A version of Salisbury. On paper, they don't look as good until you see them up front. So I don't know. I'm pretty high on North Rowan. I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people have North Rowan in the bottom, like 7th or 8th or 9th or so.
And I'm just going to point out, and I'm going to move on. Thomasville, you see, even though they lost to Salisbury, is still in the Max Press top 10. And again, it has something to do with playing a little bit better opponents, but look at those strength of schedules of all of those.
The problem with Thomasville, though, I think that they haven't cleaned up their fundamentals quite yet. So they had a really ugly game against Albemarle. They won 14-0. Salisbury, they should have been tied or at least had a touchdown by halftime. Should have been like 14-7 or 14-14. But Salisbury just kind of walked over them in the second half. Just the depth and all that. They got a good team. They got the talent. They have a higher ceiling. But right now they're playing closer to their floor, if you ask me.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that because I thought that they would be progressing. That's why I picked them to beat Salisbury because I do believe they have a high ceiling as well, but they kind of are playing down on their floor right now. I'm going to bring up to 3A real quickly. My pick is your pick, and it's Max Prep's pick as well. The one out of this, and maybe Jeff might want to say something. Jeff is online. South Point, Jeff, what do you think? I wish we had Anthony on here, but Anthony just likes to write. He doesn't like to, we can get on. We'll get him online sometime. But go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I think South Point definitely belongs up there. It wouldn't surprise me if by the end of the season we're putting South Point at number 2. That's if they lose to Kings Mountain, or number 1 if they beat Kings Mountain. Because they are very formidable. They dominate teams early. I mean, they do it so well that that they feel comfortable bringing second stringers in like midway through the second quarter, and even some games probably in the beginning of the third quarter. So South Point, they're very confident in what they do, and that defense. I tell you what, the highlights I see, like the highlights my friends give me, good golly, Miss Molly, there's a lot of hitting going on in those highlights. So, South Point, they're very physical and on defense, and they got a very physical offense. I think that South Point Kings Mountain game, I think, is more one to watch than the Kings Mountain Burns game was.
So Cam, this is Jeff Miller. He went to Forest View a number of years ago. Jeff is amazing with the memory. I don't know how someone can have quite the memory Jeff has got, but he's got a very good memory and has a pretty decent ability to kind of correlate things, just by looking at scores. Almost this algorithm like what Max Preps comes up with. That's the way I view you, Jeff. Fantastic memory. Of course, Gaston County and Cleveland County exceptionally well, and Lincoln. Can't short you on Lincoln. One of the things we hadn't seen is West Lincoln in the ranking.
Allen's covering them this week as they play Maiden.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. If West Lincoln beats Maiden, West Lincoln will be in the 2A top 10.
Yeah. I have them somewhere in that 11 to 12 range. Yeah, Kerry brought up that point that they're playing Maiden here this Friday night, so they're undefeated still.
There's no joke. There's probably about 7 teams. 11 through 17 is right there. I mean, you got Shelby, you got West Lincoln. Forest Hills is up there also. We just don't know how good they are at this point. It's just shooting fish in a barrel at this point.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, exactly, because they're kind of like this right here. They're bunched together. A lot of good football.
Down in Duplin County, you might have a James Keenan or East Duplin get up there.
Right.
I'm saying if Garrett's awake.
Garrett's stomping grounds.
Yes.
And Crest is they could prove to be a problem for some teams, I think, as they go through conference play. We'll see.
Still feel like they got a couple pieces of gel on.
Who's Crest lost to?
Burns.
Okay. So are they going to play South Point anytime soon, or?
Yeah, I'll have to check the schedule. I know that that's going to be in a few weeks. I know they got. I know South Point, Kings Mountain play each other on October 7th. I got that marked down on my calendar. I'm just. I don't feel like. I know I'm going to get raked over the coals by the Crest crowd on this, but I just don't think. I don't think the Crest South Point game will be close. I think South Point takes them by at least 14 points. I mean, that's
Jeff, I might go to Kings. Is that game at Kings Mountain, South Point, Kings Mountain? Is it?
It is.
So I might go to that game with you. That'll be a good game, and I love the Kings Mountain Stadium.
Let's go.
Maybe
Crest plays South Point on actually next Friday, September the 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Back-to-back weeks.
It's at South Point.
Yep. What's that? Crest and South Point?
Yeah, at South Point.
South Point wins that game. If it's at South Point, I think so. That's a big rival game. So
Crest plays Kings Mountain on last game of the year, October 28th.
That's a big rival game too, but I don't know what all games. I think I got to look and see when Providence Day plays Raven Gap, but I think that game's at Raven Gap. So
Raven Gap's pretty good too.
Raven Gap's very good.
Yeah,
very good.
Did they beat? Was it AC Reynolds or who did they beat?
AC Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raven Gap, Natsuki.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see them here in just a moment. There's the 4A, and again, not too many surprises. Everybody has their opinion about Gibbons and where they should be. I do think, I don't know. I think Catholic's maybe a little better than Gibbons. So I think your rankings are correct. Although having seen Weddington and Catholic, I'd love to see those two play. That'd be a good ball game.
Close.
That'd be a heck of a ball game.
So if they play each other in the playoffs, you go into that game?
Will I go to it? It depends on what other games there are. But that would be a very good game. I'd love to see that either location, because although there's nothing beats a game at Charlotte Catholic, that's just the best place to go see a football game.
Yeah.
Dale, this was the point I was bringing up last night. How did New Bern jump Huff in the Max Preps rankings with the only negative strength of schedule in 4A, in the top 10 at least?
Well, what we were looking at last night was the RPI. And RPI has nothing to do with strengths. RPI is strictly wins and losses. It's a percentage of wins and losses, and you add them up over your record, your opponent's records, and your opponent's records. It's a 30-40-30 split. So 30% points for your win percentage, 40% for your opponent's win percentage, and then 30% for your opponent's win percentage. That's all it is. So it has nothing to do with strength. Whereas this takes every game across this nation, actually, and it correlates them together, because if a score is put into Max Preps, it can be correlated into you. Now, I don't know how deep they run their algorithms to go across all of that, but there's nothing that, and they claim that that's one of their strengths, is that they can correlate across nations. Classification has nothing to do with it. The one thing that we noticed when we had the Carolina Varsity football report, the fellow who was putting together that algorithm was far more accurate than Max Preps was. I remember a point in the season that if you use Max Preps to predict a game, Max Preps was hitting on somewhere between 52 and 58%. It could pick games. Whereas the algorithm that is using Carolina Varsity football report was hitting at around 80%. So I don't know, Max Preps, and it's using the same scores because he scraped Max Preps to get the scores. But yeah, that's why, Cam, this is a true strength of schedule, and what you've done and what your strength of schedule has done for you. And that's why they are currently, now, are they going to stay there? Newburn's a pretty darn good team, in my opinion.
Yeah, Newbern beating Havelock. I believe it was 27-0. I honestly considered about moving them up to as high as number 3.
Uh-huh.
And be honest with you, I think 2, 3, and 4 are pretty close to each other.
Yeah, getting into that 2-3 spot is hard for Newbern. It's hard for anybody.
Right.
We're going to learn a lot about 2-3 Friday night. So
can't wait to be there. It's going to be a good game.
To be honest with you, I have East Forsyth obviously number 1. I do not know if they may not be quite as invincible as I thought they were. I'll keep it at that.
Well, I don't know. I personally think Chambers is better, but I don't know if that's a subjective statement, and I don't know if that's the cool thing about these power rankings is that's all objective data over there. So there's no subjectivity applied to it. And for me to say Chambers is better than East Forsyth, I'm sure there's some bias in saying that. But look over there at the strength of schedule versus East Forsyth.
I was just looking at here, I was looking at my the Carolina Varsity rankings with the power rankings. They're pretty close to each other,
Right.
I mean, Hillside's we have 5th, and they have them ranked 7th. I don't think they have Cleveland in their RPIs. Grimsley we have 7, they're 6. Weddington 8 and 8. Catholic 9 and 10, and they have Mallard Creek in there. I just don't know about Mallard Creek at this point. I think they're 11 through 15 team, but.
Mallard Creek's there again. It's objective data, so it's just the way the numbers crunched out. Does it crunch out on the field? That's a hard.
Well, it's like I was telling you last night, Dale. I don't think Mallard Creek's offense is near what it needs to be to compete for a state championship. Their defense, it's good. I mean, I don't think they can hold a team with high-flying offenses like East Forsyth, Chambers, Huff, but I mean their defense can hold just about anybody.
See, I agree with you. I was at the West Charlotte Mallard Creek game, and it was West Charlotte's offense that lost them that game. Their defense played phenomenally well, but your defense cannot be on the field and be put into position. Your offense has got to at least get the ball and make the other team's offense have some distance to go to score. And that was not happening. And it's funny because one of the coaches said something to me, and I said, the only way you're going to score is on defense. And it was like the very next play, or that, right after I said that next play, was it a pick or a fumble recovery? I think it was a pick. And the kid almost got a pick six. And, he got tackled at like the 1 or 2 yard line. It was that kind of game that their defense played outstanding. Their offense threw pick sixes and couldn't get first downs, and they couldn't get the good punts to flip field. None of that. And so I agree with you on your comment about the offense, Mallard Creek's offense, just from what I saw against Myers Park and against West Charlotte.
I know very little about these teams, but I can honestly say there's no way I would have put Mallard Creek ahead of Charlotte Catholic on that list, and I have very limited knowledge of them.
Subjectively, I don't think any of us would, but
Well, here's the reason. I'll argue for that. I'll argue for putting Mallard Creek above them. Not many people can stop that high rushing attack of Charlotte Catholic, but I think Mallard Creek could. I mean, they have some run stuffers on that team, and they would force Catholic to be, a passing team, which, they've been doing a little bit more this season, but they're not predominantly known as a, throwing the ball around the yard type team. And if Mallard Creek could force them into doing that, I think they could have a chance of, winning a game against Charlotte Catholic.
Yeah. I think that would be a good football game. I don't think that's a 2-score, Catholic's going to win the game. I think I would pick Catholic, but I know I would pick Catholic, but I would think that's a 1-score game.
Yeah, if that game wasn't Catholic, I'd pick Catholic. No question about it. If it's on a neutral side or Mallard Creek's field, I don't know. Those two teams are somewhat even, but Catholic's one of those places where I think the home field advantage really means something a little bit more than most places.
There's just nothing. I get so excited, and it took me after that game, that Providence State game. Literally, that entire night, my energy level was so high, and it was because of the student, all that activity of the Charlotte Catholic crowd. It's just so phenomenal. Real quickly, and then we'll look at some of these questions. Here's the overall make you mad stuff. And Jim did move Providence Day up. I would probably move Providence Day 1 or 2 spots higher. I don't know yet. 1 spot, I think, but so we're close there. Kings Mountain, I like these picks. They're good. These are all good football teams. Very, very good football teams.
I like Providence Day a lot. Yeah, I'm a big Jaden Davis fan. I think, bar none, he's the best quarterback in the state.
So what's going to happen there at Providence Day is every game they play, he is going to get better because he right now is still molding in. He's still molding, I guess, is the best way I'm going to put it. He has things to learn that's going to make him better as a leader on the team. I tell you that in that Catholic game, he made some fantastic plays, especially that touchdown that won the game. So Providence Day's a good squad. And if anybody's complaining, why is, Providence Day in here? When we look at this, we're looking at all high schools in North Carolina. We understand
Raven Gap is in North Carolina?
No, but Raven Gap plays in, because Raven Gap's right on the border of North Carolina, Georgia. And so they joined the North Carolina Independent, private association. They're a member of it. That's who Providence beat last year. I was at that game in the state championship. Was Raven Gap. What a team that is! Man, they're good. But that's why they're listed here, because they are in the North Carolina Association.
Now,
Providence
got
Day
one
plays.
thing.
I'll go. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say the one thing I wanted to mention here about the 4As and the top 10s. You're not seeing Richmond County here. Richmond County is not going to sniff the top 10 anytime soon.
True.
And that's a program that's almost like a light switch went off on it. I don't know if you. I thought they were going to struggle this year, but I did not know to this extent.
Not to this extent. I didn't think so. Jim, it's kind of when you look at them, what I say is look over to A.L. Brown, and you're seeing the same kind of situation. And it's no doubt it's about not having enough people staying in, since Richmond is a one school, the only school in the county. They need more jobs there to get the right kind of people in to continue. It's a tougher situation now.
Richmond County was created in 1972, and they had one losing season in their history. This might be their second year, and their first losing season was might have been the first or second year they're in existence. And they've had nothing but winning seasons, or I think maybe they had 1 year where they had a 5-5 record. But back in 1972, you had 4 schools that were consolidated. You had the old Rockingham High School. You had Hamlet. Both of those were 3A schools. You had Rohannon, which is a 2A school, and you had Ellerby, which kind of played up to a 2A school. Ellerby basically had 1A numbers, though. And that was Irie Leonards, who used to be the Southern Pines head football coach back in the 50s, won a couple of state championships there. I think he was the very first athletic director there, and he built football at the place. And you need guys like that. I don't know if Richmond County has the backers now that they did even 10 years ago.
I don't know. I haven't been to Richmond. I haven't been to a Richmond game in 3-4 years, since before the pandemic. So I don't know. Going to a game would certainly tell us a lot.
They play Pinecrest this week.
Yeah, they do.
If they beat Pinecrest, I think that shows they're right in the ship. If they lose to Pinecrest by about 24 to 25 points, which I think they will, they're in big trouble.
Dell, I'll give you the date of this Providence Day Raven Gap game, then I'm going to hop off here. I've been on the whole time. So they play on October the 21st, but it is at Raven Gap. So.
Oh, yeah. So that's a long trip. I don't think I'll go to that game. Thank you for joining, especially keeping me company early. You're welcome to come on anytime you'd like. We do this every Wednesday. Jeff Cam does this on Talking Preps. He is, it's just a fact. I think he knows a lot about football, and he's going to know a lot about football as he moves forward. Good, sharp young man.
If I'm not mistaken, Jeff, I think I've seen you before. I covered Shelby Crest last year, and I think you were in the press box too.
Yeah, I think I did cover, a Crest game last year, but I forget which one I covered. I'm just might have been Crest Kings Mountain, or I forget which one, but
your face looks familiar. I think that's where I know you from.
If he had a notebook, that was him. He's always
yeah.
taking a note. Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate you, Dale. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
Cameron, it's nice meeting you.
Yes, sir.
Nice to meet
you too.
So I see East Lincoln Shelby would be a good game. Lake Norman is tough. I think all that's true.
East Lincoln's not playing Shelby this year because East Lincoln's 3A, Shelby's 2A.
That's right.
Matt Lineberger. How do I know Matt Lineberger? How do I know that name? I can't see that.
Talked about a shortage of officials.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about officials. Last night I went on and I drank 2 shots of hot sauce and ate a hot pepper, and because I was hot about the officiating. And I wanted to say a few more things, so we talked about officiating a little bit earlier tonight.
Do you think I wasn't there when y'all talked about it, but do you think persists that some of these officials may have to do like double time, like some games due to official shortages, like get moved to like a Saturday or a Monday or such because of that?
That's a good question. I don't know if we've encountered a situation. Jim, do you know one where a game couldn't be played because they couldn't get it officials?
Yes, actually, this happens every so often, but it's not really well reported. What it usually happens is when the officials are told to go to 2 different places, and there are some type of scheduling issues where they're supposed to go to uh, field A or school A and ended up going to school B. You've seen that happen quite a bit. I know that's happened even in South Carolina this year. You had somebody that didn't schedule the refs right, but historically, about just from being a shortage of refs, no, it's just more of just bad administration a lot of times.
It could happen, Jeff. So, this shortage of officials, I just don't know how they would handle. I don't know how they handle that. But I have a feeling we're going to find out. There's a comment about Lake Norman. Lake Norman is pretty good, as I think they regularly are. I'm assuming I don't know if this is Jeff or Kerry here. I mean, not Jeff, Alan. That sounds like Alan.
That's Alan.
Yeah, that sounds like an Alan. I don't know that Kerry would add that 28 points analysis.
Alan is very analytical about the games in his area, so he's pretty sharp on that.
Jim, what do you think about this right here?
Hickory football win over North Lincoln this Friday. I agree. I like that. I like that statement. I'm a big Joe Glass fan. He's the Hickory head coach. Glass's teams usually historically get better as the season progresses. Hickory, I think Hickory's already starting to turn that corner a little bit. So I agree with that statement.
What did you want to ask me about Burns or Chase or Shelby?
Oh, just what your thoughts were on where they were ranked and how I think you did address part of that, didn't you?
Addressed maybe a little bit of it. I know when you guys talked about Chase, I talked about how their strength of schedule is not very good. And, I think they will get tested a little bit later this season when they play Hendersonville, another very good team. And, I would definitely be intrigued to see a Chase and Shelby game, because Chase has never beaten Shelby in their school history. And I understand not having Shelby in the top 10 right now because of the 3 losses. I mean, that's why at one point I didn't have them ranked very high, simply because, they were losing games. I mean, I know they were playing tough teams, but I mean, truth be told, you're not getting the wins on the board. Now lately they've been doing that. So they keep their dominant stuff, and if they beat Burns, you got to consider them for a top 10. By year's end, Jim. And Burns. They're very good this year. They whipped a very good Crest team and then beat a good Watauga team. I was at that game. I covered it, and it was neck and neck until Watauga started, throwing up all over themselves, with fumbles on consecutive drives, and that's why you see 48-28. The game was not a blowout. It wasn't like that until, like I said, Watauga started fumbling, and then they sort of had to get out of the offense they were used to running. So I can give you analysis on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, not all 48-28 games are all the same. It can be a nail biter for 3.5 quarters, and all of a sudden you have a team blow away, and then you have another thing where it's 48-14, and all of a sudden you have the scrubs in, and 2 touchdowns are made.
Exactly. Such a fine line sometimes, and the not having Shelby ranked, since that's a subjective poll anyway, we can add, and I personally, just like Jim, I add that bias that, well, you're not winning. I know you're playing tough teams, but you're not winning. So when you win, you'll be able to get yourself in there. Let's show a little, there's a little bit of merit in ranking some other teams when they're winning, I guess.
Something else I do always look at, whether, let's say that you're Team A and you're 3-2, and you have Team B that's 5-0. If Team B had to play Team A's schedule, would they still be 5-0, or would they be 3-2 or 2-3?
Right.
That's things I look at. So, I mean, the overall record really doesn't mean that much in non-conference. I mean, you got some schools that play harder schedules than others.
Well, and we also, if we just mentioned Richmond a minute ago, and how do we not know during all those losses that actually Shelby's kind of facing the same downturn like Richmond has faced, right? So you don't think that's going to happen, but we want to see some wins come on the board to reassure us that that's not happening.
See, I thought Shelby would be Crest. I'm not high on Crest at this point. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. And
I'm with
shaking his head.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Jim, on that.
And I know, every time we do the top 10, I don't have to, if you live in Cleveland County, you don't have to water your lawns, because all the Cleveland County, the Crest and Shelby, Kings Mountain, and Burns fans, their tears will water those lawns for days and days at a time. I mean, I've never seen so many people so thin-skinned in one county. And I know they get some really good football programs, but
froze.
I mean, seriously, crazy.
Somebody froze. There you go. You're back. Everybody's back.
I'm pretty dumb.
I don't know what happened there, but everybody froze on me there for a moment, and I was the only one moving.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So one of the other things is, I was going to talk just a moment about where we're going, and I'm picking probably not the best game to pick, but it's the first time these two schools will play, and it's obviously going to become, I believe, a rival game, because they're the two closest schools to each other, and Palisades, taking Olympic, and me investing all my life into Olympic with my children, and sons playing there. And now my district is Palisades, and my kids' children, if they happen to go to if they don't move, that's where they're going to go to high school. So that's why I'm going to that game. I don't know if it's going to be a good game. I'm a touch surprised that South Meck only beat them by 1 score this past week. I know South Meck's down. I'm not saying this to think that Palisades has a shot in this game, because I don't think they do. But
Palisades, are they playing just 9th and 10th graders at this point?
they do have juniors,
They do have juniors.
sophomores.
Okay.
But when they started the season, this is really important. When they started the season, only 2 players had prior varsity experience, and each of those players only played in 1 game in varsity. So they really loaded with JV and kids who never played before. So that's a tough situation coming from different schools, trying to blend that culture in and not having experience, So
For too long, we might be referring to them as the Fighting Jet Skis.
The Fighting Jet Skis. They're close to the water. They're still about a mile off of the water, probably. I haven't measured it, but they're I think a mile to 3/4 of a mile. They're not far off the lake for sure. That's the way the lake bends around. The Fighting Jet Skis. I don't think that was one of the suggested mascots, but that would have been an interesting. That's interesting. So we'll see. You're going to call it Jeff just coined it. The Fighting Jet Skis. Jim, what are you thinking about for Friday night?
I'm probably going to go over to Yanceyville and watch Bartlett Yancey host North Moore. North Moore is a very good 1A team. They're actually in our top 10. I want to see how good they are, because I actually think Bartlett Yancey has a decent shot at beating them. And Bartlett Yancey is a 2A school. It's a 1A, 2A conference. So I really want to see how good North Moore is. If North Moore handles Bartlett Yancey, I know I did the right thing. If not, I know that we're going to replace North Moore with somebody next week.
Okay. Jeff?
I'm going to go watch a county rivalry this week. I'm going to go watch Forest View at Ashbrook. There's my brothers went to Ashbrook. I went to Forest View. I've never missed a Forest View Ashbrook game. I've missed a couple of Forest View Husk games, in which I'm likely going to miss that one later on this year because South Point and Kings Mountain play that week. But I've zeroed in on the Forest View Ashbrook game. That game will be a measuring stick, for both teams. See which one, is closer to a playoff spot and which one is closer to bouncing basketballs.
There was a comment there about Christ School. So I'll bring that up, and what I'm doing, if you saw me, go off camera.
Christ the King.
Christ the King. That's a very intriguing program this year. They're undefeated, I think. So, that's an improving program right there, based on, but they, barely beat Bessemer City a couple weeks ago, 14-13. Bessemer City was up 13 before Christ rallied and beat them 14-13. But fact remains, like we talked earlier, they're winning games. And and I think they play Mountain Island Charter in a couple weeks or so. That's forget when they play, but that could be an intriguing matchup right there.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, did you have anything? One of the we got 10 people on, so I want to make a comment real quick here. Maybe some of these people will assist with this. So what I'm going to do is bring up, if I can, Microsoft Edge. I'll bring this up. So I was just looking at some power rankings, and what I want to do, people, I'm going to go here to number one. This should be North Carolina. These power rankings are the result of an algorithm, a math algorithm, that scrapes all the scores and then starts doing some analysis to create a strength of a team. And then they give them a rating based off of that, and they also can rate the strength of schedule. And we used to do this about 10 years ago, but we lost that ability. And I'm looking for math people that might like to rebuild what we were doing with the Carolina Varsity Football Report, where it actually predicted every game every week throughout the entire season. So it predicted the state champion on day one of the season, and then it just kept adjusting throughout the season. And I want to bring that back. I need either some students that are interested in getting involved, or teachers, math teachers, adults that are just good in math and would like to devote the time. I just don't have the time to develop an algorithm. There are algorithms that exist. Massey used, if you remember, we used to have Massey ratings in the college rankings years ago. They use Massey ratings, and Massey, that formula is available that people can use. So I would like to bring back something and be better than anything that's out there, just for fun. So if you're interested, how about contacting us? Or if you know somebody that's interested. A student, I don't care what part of the state they're in. Einstein. Well, Einstein could definitely do it, but we'd rather have, if we had an Einstein today, we'd rather have him focusing on honing in on maybe quantum physics now. He's got do what?
Einstein had been the guy that created Gatorade, or would have showed you how to kick the football at a right angle or something like that.
Exactly.
I don't know about probability. Einstein wasn't Einstein was a very good philosopher, to be honest with you. He is he's not well known for his being a philosopher, but if you go to any ethics courses, everybody quotes Einstein all the time. It has nothing to do with what he's known for, but it's more about his ethics and logic.
Right. Well, a lot of the physics guys in history were philosophers, or philosophers were physics. If you go way, way, way back into the Aristotle and all years of back into the early Greek, the philosophers were also the mathematicians and the what we would call scientists today. So that might not be the best use of Einstein's mind, just as I don't think Hawking would be the best use.
What we need is somebody that's this intelligent, that's willing to volunteer a lot of time.
Exactly.
They don't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for some fun.
looking for some fun. I mean, we have the ideas of what we want. I mean, we got a template of what we had and what it did, and it was actually a very, very wonderful piece of work that coaches across the state started. I don't know. I don't want to say they relied on, but when it didn't come out, I heard from people. I heard from coaches. They were looking for it each week because it is accurate. But at the end of the day, coach, you still got to go out there and play the game. And if the report predicts that you're going to lose the game, a report's not going to tell you what you can do to change it. So change that. You got to do that yourself.
Any more new schools coming in your area, Dale?
High schools?
Yes.
Charlotte or Mecklenburg County is so messed up. We are so overpopulated in every school. We need more schools. I think Waddell is not being used right now. When I went to West Charlotte, played Mallard Creek at Waddell this past Friday night, and that language arts school moved. I think that campus is empty. It looked like it was empty. I don't understand that. CMS is not very well managed.
Well, so there's got to be a backstory about Waddell for whatever reason. Got to be a couple of backstories.
Well, they built the school and it was needed. But the biggest thing is it didn't get quite the students because they wouldn't cut into Myers Park's district. Myers Park has some kind of protected district here in Charlotte. They own the politics of Charlotte, that they keep their district from getting sliced up.
In other words,
say again.
No Dilworth High School, then no Dilworth Dobermans.
Dilworth Dobermans. I like that. There should be a Dilworth High School. There could be a Dilworth High School if Charlotte Mecklenburg were better managed and they were trying to keep student populations down to the original goals of 2000.
So right now there's 20. There's 20 high schools in Charlotte's Mecklenburg. They're part of the 20 high schools.
21, 22, somewhere in that range. I forget.
How many more do you think you need? Probably about 5 more if you're really going to be truthful about it.
If you're going to be truthful about it, you probably need 5 more, and then balanced districts. But you're probably going to need 10 more by the end of this decade. If a meteor doesn't hit us, population just continues to grow.
Wayne County's the same way. It's like going crazy right now.
The biggest thing with Charlotte Mecklenburg is they need to subdivide the LEA. I think that there needs to be 4 LEAs instead of 1.
Charlotte, they've been rated one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in the nation.
That's right. That's why I say the need for schools is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Also, have
the problem is like the triangle, it's just exploded. Also, it's the triangle is huge right now.
But you also have to have land to build these schools on too. I mean, and that's getting bought up.
That's correct. So they're talking about, because of those kinds of issues, they're talking about maybe starting to build municipal stadiums and not put stadiums at the schools, which I don't agree with. I agree there should be some stadiums that anybody could play at for various reasons, but I think every school should still have their own stadium and play their games at home.
Well, can you still use Memorial Stadium?
You can. You got to pay.
I mean, at one time you had a Thursday night game there, you had a Friday night game there, and a Saturday night game there. A lot of times in the 80s, I saw that from researching.
In the 80s, in
I
the
think even the
70s, and actually into the 60s, 70s, and 80s, well, even further back, but definitely during that boom era when we had, say, 10 high schools here in Charlotte, and only a couple of the schools had stadiums. So Memorial was the home stadium. That was the home stadium for a number of schools in Charlotte. That's why that happened. Schools didn't have stadiums to play at. And so in the 80s, they started giving some of the schools their own stadiums. More of the schools their own stadiums. They actually focused on every school will eventually have their own stadium. Olympic was one of the last.
They have a
Olympic,
nice stadium too. I like that Olympic Stadium.
Olympic's first stadium was put in place by donations from Johnson C. Smith University when they tore down their stadium. They donated their bleachers and all to Olympic to build. So Charlotte Mecklenburg did not build them a stadium. It was built off the back of donations. And the stadium that you saw is actually the first real CMS investment, other than some field renovation and a few renovations. But that's it. So,
I don't mind using something like Memorial Stadium. A lot of people talk about all this stuff about great football and everything. Well, first thing I think you need to do is build pride in your school. And to me, it's hard to build pride when you have a regional stadium. Northern Durham, they use County Stadium in Durham. I mean, Southern Durham used to use it every so often. The new high school, Northern Durham is getting a new high school. They're supposed to have a new football stadium there. I think it's a big boon for them, to be honest with you, having it on the same campus.
right.
Something about having to go to another school or another place to play your football games just doesn't feel quite right.
Let me answer that question real quick. They play Huff. This was the question that came up. So Friday night is Huff Chambers.
That's going to be a good game.
That'll be a slobber knocker.
That'll be a slobber knocker. Yeah. Two very physical teams going at each other. If the physicality part of a football game is your thing, that might be the best. That'll be the best thing you could find in North Carolina this Friday night.
Yeah, I agree.
And it might be the best game period anyway, but you like to see two teams go at it, boy. Physically, that's your game right there. When I saw the Christ the King, I don't know, I was thinking Christ School up in Arden.
Arden, yep. You know what famous NASCAR racer used to live in Arden?
A NASCAR racer.
I'll give you a hint. He's about 80 years old now, maybe 81 years old. And he was famous for driving with wingtip shoes.
Wingtip shoes. Let's see here. Wasn't an Allison.
Not Richard.
Wasn't Allison. He grew up in Wisconsin at one time. He was from Wisconsin originally.
In his 80s.
Back in '76, he won a few races with Harry Hyde as his crew chief. A guy named Dave Marcus.
Dave Marcus. Okay, I know who Dave Marcus is. I remember him. When I followed the era that I followed NASCAR was the 60s and 70s.
So, I grew up, my first racer I liked was David Pearson. And then when he stopped racing, I started pulling for Harry Gantz. And then when he stopped racing, I lost NASCAR and I started pulling for Earnhardt. And now he's, the last 20 years, it's harder for me to pull for any racer and all.
Cale Yarborough.
Gotcha.
He was my driver.
Get him close, Cale. That's what his name was. He couldn't tell you how to fix a car's tire, but he could sure drive it.
Who's that?
Cale Yarborough. He had very little mechanical experience.
No, but he had a great crew chief, and he could drive the heck out of a car. Exactly. I liked a lot. I guess probably my favorite driver was Dale Earnhardt's dad, Ralph Earnhardt.
Yes.
But he was dirt track in the 60s. So yeah, I used to go. I've been to the World 600 several times. I was there when you could tell that if you guys don't know this, you're going to learn something. The Charlotte Motor Speedway is built on the inside rim of a volcano, a dead.
There's supposed to be like, I think that when they first started drilling in there, they ran into a bunch of granites, and it cost like millions of dollars more just to get that granite out of there.
So when we would go to the track, you could walk around, and you know that volcanic rock. If you know what it looks like, it's real porous, real. You'd find that volcanic rock all over the place. And what happened? It was the big Charlotte landfill, so they filled it in. They filled the whole infield in with dump stuff. But yeah, you can check that on Wikipedia or somewhere else if you have question. But yep, built on a volcano, built on.
Well, when that place was still first being built, it was Curtis Turner and Britton Smith. They were partners with some other people, and Britton, he had to get out of Charlotte back in the early '60s. He and Curtis lost their hide, and a guy named Richard Howard of Howard Furniture in Denver ended up buying the track, and finally Britton bought it back from him. But didn't he die recently? I knew it was either Britton or Humpy. I think it was Britton who died.
Bruton died.
It's been a few years old, right?
It hasn't been that long ago.
Bruton died this year.
Yeah, I think it's like last 3-4 months
before the pandemic. But okay, I don't know. I don't keep up with it. So
he died back in June.
Okay.
I still got Bristol on my book.
I always learned, he used to ride his bicycle around the Charlotte Motor Speedway every day.
Yeah. I've been to Bristol, Darlington.
Now here's one for you. You know where Humpy Wheeler played high school football?
No, I don't. Albemarle?
Charlotte Catholic.
Charlotte Catholic. Okay. For some reason, I've heard that, but it's just not in my head registered.
No.
But I believe you.
So, but I do plan on going to see that All-Star race in North Wilkesboro next year. I do plan on doing that.
That's going to be a fun one. I mean, that's a good little track, and I'm glad they got that track up to speed again. There was two guys that owned that track. It was one of them was Enoch Staley, and I forgot what the other guy's name was, but I think Enoch ended up selling to Britton Smith. The other guy sold out to the guy that owned the New Hampshire Speedway, Bob Barr, I believe. But Enoch Staley, he and Bill France owned the dirt track in Hillsboro together. They owned it until 1968, and they decided to get rid of that race day because they needed one for this big old track in Alabama called Talladega. So as the crows fly,
see about Humphrey.
It's about a mile and a half from my house, that old dirt track.
Racing, I tell you.
Guys, I better head on out, man. It's getting past my bedtime.
And I'm getting low battery.
Oh, I see one question here.
Who does NC State play? I think he means.
Yep. UConn.
Win.
Oh, yeah, it's a win. It better be a win. It better be a win by several scores. That not so big win over East Carolina dropped them 3 spots in the poll. So
I tell you what, State's defense looks really impressive.
they will look very good this past Saturday.
I'm not crazy about their uniforms, though. I just want that black uniform. I just I like State in red.
What I did like about it, I did like the black helmet, but
that's fine. That's fine.
But the all black shirt and pants just didn't set right with me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's just an alternate uniform.
Do what?
I think that's just an alternate uniform. I don't think they're wearing it every.
No, it
Saturday.
is. They've worn that. Yeah. They've worn that all black before. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I did like the black helmet. I'm going to say the helmet looked very nice. But the jersey and that didn't set with me. It probably rung through with the players, and that's all that matters. Us fans. Yeah. Oh, Carrie says NC State has Parents Weekend this weekend. So both of my sons went to NC State for engineering. Of course, both of my sons went into the Navy, and they became Navy nukes. And one of them is out and got his MBA at Virginia Tech. So he's an NC State, Virginia Tech guy. And the other one is still in the Navy. And he controls the nuclear reactor on a submarine. Wow. Those guys, those 2 boys they could do this algorithm. You want to talk about math capable individuals. They do calculus. They learned to do calculus in high school without a calculator. Wow. They had to do it on paper. That was a requirement of their teacher, who was a phenomenal guy. If I had half their smarts, I'd be set. The Panthers need help this year. The Panthers need a whole new.
They need ownership. They need
new ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coaching is mediocre, but I think the administration or the ownership is just awful.
It's hard, the coaching is mediocre. I agree, and if you change administration, you probably ought to just change the coaching too. But I would change everything above the coaches before I change the coach. I think the problem's above the coaches more than anything. But if I'm going to do all that, I'm going to put new coaches in too, I think.
The thing about Matt Rule, though, going into the season, I'm like, this is going to be his last year because I don't see the talent on that roster. And it can't be David Tepper's fault. It's got to be somebody's fault. And Rule looks like the number one person to be the fall guy.
Exactly. Somebody's got to fall for this. Exactly. So he's going to fall for it.
Low hanging.
Say again, Jeff.
Low hanging fruit.
Low hanging fruit. Exactly. He's the fruit they think of right. He's the fruit that they let actually get rotten a little bit.
Something else I'd do if I was the Panthers, I'd go ahead and make everybody mad and start and try to find a home for Christian McCarthy or McCaffrey. Go ahead and plan for the future. Somebody will give up some first round draft choices for Christian.
The problem is the Panthers will do that wrong. They would just completely blow it. I don't know. I just got no faith in their ability to draft. I've got no.
The one thing about the Panthers, though, they're a pretty young team. They're one of the younger teams in the league at this point. And I think Baker Mayfield is not a bad quarterback. I don't think he is.
He needs a line.
I think Providence Equanu was a good draft pick by them.
Yeah.
Okay, they have some good draft picks, but overall, they can't build a team because teams are not just built through draft. Teams also built through trades, and I don't know. I just have no faith in their ability to produce a winning product.
Well, guys, I better
I
call it a night.
Yeah,
Alrighty. Me too.
me
All right,
too.
take care,
I
guys.
guess Carrie says y'all can run. Carrie said her son's a freshman. I think that's her at NC State. I can do that. Can you do that, Jeff? There you go, Jeff. Jeff's a Wolfpacker now. We brought you on board, Jeff. Okay. This was a long night. Thanks for stopping in.
Thank you.
And thanks,
I'll
everybody.
see you later.
See you.